And moving ahead quickly, trying to keep up with the time, let's move ahead with the next panel discussion on addressing onboarding skepticism in Web 3.0 integration. Luxury brands vis-a-vis the mass market. Please join me in welcoming our panelists for the same. Arpit Sharma, MD, India, SEA and Middle East at NIA Foundation. Harleen Bhatti, Head, Growth and Retention, the Good Glam Group. Akash Agrawal, Founder, MetaWorks. Vinod Bhatt, Chief Information Officer and Chief Ethics Counselor, Vistara, Tata Sia Airlines. Rajesh Dudu, Global Head, Emerging Technologies, Tech Mahindra. And this session will be chaired by Sumit Goswami, co-founder and CEO, Primo Vision. Let's please welcome all of them, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, good afternoon. Wow. So the lunch has really caught up with all of you. Huh? Good afternoon. That was better. Okay. So we are all here for Web3, right? A very interesting topic. We hear a lot of stuff around Web3. We have also been hearing a lot of stuff around metaverse. So the panel here is going to today discuss about the skepticism around implementation of Web3 as a technology. And how does it differ between a luxury goods brand and the mass market? So the focus here is going to be all about adoption. And I have an amazing panel with me, some very senior leaders from the industry. Few of them have implemented, various blockchain solutions in their own organizations. Few of them are leading practices, which does implementation of Web3. Few of them are head of, they had the marketing function of brands. So let us hear from them. I'll just do a quick round of introduction of all the panelists. Then we'll move to the second stage of our discussion, which will be more about understanding the perspective around Web3. What do we feel about it? What is our experiences around it? And then the third part of it would be to talk about the various business cases, specifically focusing on what have been implemented in our organization or what implementation we have seen and how has it been successful. And the fourth, where we look at the adoption cycle in luxury goods and mass market. So this is how we are going to start with. I will request my panelists to do their own introduction. It is better to hear from them their own story. So why not we start with Rajesh?
Hello, everyone. My name is Rajesh, and I work as Senior Vice President and Global Head of Emerging Technologies for Tech Mahindra. I've been with TechM over the last 5 years and started the blockchain practice. Happy to talk about more.
Thank you, Rajesh. Vinod?
Thank you for having me. My name is Vinod Bhatt. I'm the Chief Information Officer and Chief Ethics Counselor for Vistara Airlines. I've been in the industry for 30 plus years now. I've spent 10 plus years in US, some years in UK, Europe, and APAC. So I've been associated with digital technologies last 16, 18 years. So happy to be part of this panel.
Everybody, this is Harleen. I lead the growth retention function at the Good Glam Group. We are a house of brands into beauty and personal care, and I'm here to bring the marketing perspective to Web3 technologies that bring to the brands. Happy to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Arpit. I'm Managing Director for NIA Foundation, leading India, Southeast Asia, and Middle East. I have been living and breathing Web2 for last 3 years now. Web3, sorry, for last 3 years now. Super excited about how things are turning out and some interesting use cases that are happening. I've been part of some 35 projects of different nature, different sectors, B2B, B2C, government, etc. Super excited to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if I should be saying GM, like we do it in the Web3 space. My name is Akash Agrawal. I have had like Web3, maybe 2 or 3 iterations. So about 16, 17 years. Initially, I was working for Sony, Nike, and Walmart, leading brand and marketing, and actually learning from them, not leading those businesses. In the last 10 years or so, I've been into consulting. I transitioned into Web3 in 2021. That's when the NFTs started hitting. Learned about blockchain somewhere in about 2018. So right now, I help brands build that bridge from Web2 to Web3. I'm looking forward to this discussion here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Akash. So let me ask you some questions. This is a Web3 conference, and I'm sure you all are aware of what NFT is, right? So how many of you own NFTs? Wow, okay. Not many, right? Now, suppose you are given an option to have your own NFT. What would that be about? If you are given an option to have your own NFT, what would that NFT be about? Your persona?
In general.
Okay. Interesting. What else? Membership pass into the community. Okay. Interesting. What else? Anything related to, some sports person that you're a fan of, or any movie star that you're a fan of, anything like that? Priceless piece of art. I heard somebody say never. That's interesting. Good. Okay. Right, that's it. Come on, there could be so many interesting use cases around NFT, right? Okay, fine. Let me move to something else in terms of Web3 adoption. You all know what a token is, right? A blockchain crypto token. Now, suppose we give you an option to build your own token. What would that token be about, and what use case would you be using that token to solve? Yeah.
There'll be a loyalty token because every brand that brings those loyalty programs to the group of 1% token. Right? Basically, with the price, they have token of sorry, the loyalty program.
Okay, so loyalty program, right? Great. That will not be
Applicable.
that. Okay, nice perspective. Anything else? One in the world. Okay. Who else? Come on, this is an open canvas, right? Just some imagination, some innovation.
We aren't getting any part of it. But when we are doing great problem, first of all, the only targeting ads that they provide are specific to Web3 audience. So because they know that the major type of their audience is would see ad block, so they have ad blockers, but they give us ads like pop-up ads or something, and those ads will earn some reward in terms of video. So I think that is the cases of crypto, like they are getting the power to be users.
Excellent. So this is an amazing response because it directly talks about how Web3 can be there for mass adoption, right? And this is a great example. Okay, so decentralized identity, absolutely. There are a lot of people actually working on it, and that's a great use case. Okay, so let's get into the discussion. What I'll request now is for each of the panelists to share their perspective about Web3. and any experience that they would want to share with us about any Web3 implementation they may have seen or they may have experienced. So why not we start with maybe Akash? Akash, you have been with brands like Nike and Walmart, right? And you are currently a consulting. You had a consulting company. That's your own startup where you help enterprises move into Web3. So what, according to you, is your perspective or your perception about Web3?
Sure. Thanks, Sumit. So it really varies. So I think one of the challenges that I come across often when we talk of skepticism, actually. So number one, maybe how many skeptics are there right now who think that Web3 is nothing too great? Maybe just a show of hands. No skeptics. Awesome.
Wow.
We should shut down. Let's go home.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Okay, great. So anyway, so let me just talk about Web 1, 2, 3, this journey. Sometimes it may not be as clear because I was outside, somebody was talking about, creator economy, and they were referring to Web 2 and saying that creator economy already exists. So what is different? So I'll maybe just briefly touch upon that. So Web 1 started off with something which we call or refer to as information economy, where you could just read or glean information off the internet. That was late 90s. 2000 is when we started seeing where you can actually upload information or data onto the internet. And that is when all these platforms started to come into existence. By platform, I mean Facebook or YouTube or Instagram and all of those platforms actually. So also with the development of all these devices, each one of us technically became a creator, where we are creating content and uploading it almost on a daily basis, maybe on social media or LinkedIn or wherever that you are. What we sometimes miss is that content is not yours once it is uploaded onto the internet. Okay, so it belongs to the platform. They have absolute right, or they can shut it down, they can lose it, they can get hacked, and you will have nothing to do about that. The other is from a take rate perspective, which they charge, it can go as high as about 60 to 70%. So imagine as a creator, you just might be getting 30 cents to $1, and that's all that you get. So I'm not saying those platforms are bad. Those platforms, if you think what did they provide us, they brought forward actually three benefits. Number one was access. The other was in terms of aggregation that they did. And the number three, most importantly, was the trust service. So if I take an example of Amazon, for example, in terms of access, they suddenly opened up the entire buyer community to a brand that was wanting to sell on the internet. From an aggregation perspective, as a user, I could go there and look at is the huge difference. And what this does is, in very simple terms, does two things. It gives you the right of the property. It might be digital asset or whatever it is, and it gives you complete verifiable ownership. And those two things really make it totally differentiated from what Web 2 is, and it enables a lot of services and solutions. To simplify it actually further, if you're a creator, for example, a digital art, somebody mentioned wanted to own a digital art. So if I was putting it up on a platform, I might be losing 20, 30% as a take rate of that platform. And then I only earn once. That is when the first time that that particular art sells. But what happens in Web3 is potentially you can create a royalty which can run in perpetuity, right? And imagine how empowering it'd be for the creator who actually put in all that hard work to create that solution. So many a times this creator economy aspect is lost out on people or brands that I talk to about. And that is what we really need to put forth and say that, okay, here is what it does. And this is where you can actually empower your own community and engage with them to build the brand forward. And I'll get into the examples maybe later on as we go along.
Sure. No, I think that was great. Rajesh, you had the emerging technologies business at Tech Mahindra,
Right.
And you prior to this you were with Quattro, right? So you have seen a lot of implementation happening, right, in terms of digital technologies, which includes AI, machine learning, and blockchain as well. So, what is your take on the industry, and where is this moving, specifically Web3 implementation?
So given the current state of adoption and the current state of industry, I think Web3 is still utopian. And why I say it is utopian, because there are three fundamental things that Web3 is going to bring to the table. One is in terms of right to monetize, right to forget, and right to control. And you don't have any of that on the existing internet today. And existing internet cannot cater to that because it's fundamentally the architectures are different. It's based on centralized architectures. And whatever we are talking about cannot happen in a centralized architecture environment. It has to go to a decentralized architecture. For example, Brave as a browser, the prosumer thing that he was talking about, where the producer is also a consumer and vice versa. It cannot happen in the existing scheme of things and the existing centralized architectures. The first one is a tectonic shift from the centralized architecture to the decentralized architecture, which brings in terms of full disintermediation into the play. So that's the first step that we need to make. So we are somewhere dabbling between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0, probably Web 2.5, where now we are trying to bring all these applications, whether it is non-fungible token, or whether it is metaverse, or whether it is circular economy, where you have token economy is nothing but a circular economy. And to that, you are adding an element of trust. And you're trying to say, okay, now let me usher you guys from a Web 2.0 or 2.5 to 3.0. So most of the implementations that we have pivoted within India as well as outside India are somewhere between Web 2.5 and Web 3.0. You cannot do Web 3.0 in isolation of the other ecosystem players. So whatever we did, for example, we did NFTs. First time an automaker from India did an NFT. Why I'm calling it as first time? Because they did it in a fiat currency and not a cryptocurrency. Ideally, if it would have been done through a cryptocurrency, it would have sat in the domain of Web 3.0, but a group of 75 years of existence, you don't want to do anything fishy. So you want to play safe. So you have to bring in hybrid models into the play. We see a lot of evangelization of Web 3.0, and that is actually happening from the startup community because there's a vested interest, right? You've done initial coin offering, you've done initial exchange offering. Now you need to take your DApp, decentralized application, from a research paper into a POC. That's where we see a lot of activity is happening. I don't think we are yet in the perspective of Web 3.0 until and unless you change these macro factors. That's where we go to Web 3.0.
That's a great point, specifically when you touched upon the reason why the automobile manufacturer decided not to go for a crypto but a fiat. I think the government has to play a major role here in terms of adoption, right? So, Arpit, you had a NEAR Foundation for this region, and there has been a lot of implementations that you have done. Prior to this, you were with Polygon, and again, there you've done a lot of Web3 implementation. To would love to learn your perspective and your take on Web3 adoption.
Yeah. So I think I'll take a slightly contrarian view to what Rajesh just mentioned, right? So it's about the perspective. If you look at Web3 from the perspective of an enterprise or a traditional business, exactly that is what is happening, right? That how are big enterprise clients adopting Web3? So basically they are taking some elements of Web3, weaving them into something which I call peripheral use cases which do not touch the core of the business, so as not to disrupt anything, and using some of those elements and delivering a Web 2.50 kind of a experience, right? But at the same time, we have to be cognizant, and it happens a lot that when we talk about Web3, we think of Web3 as something which is going to happen in 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, right? But what is interesting is that Web3 is happening today, right? So there are two worlds which are existing today. So there is this Web 2 world, or the traditional world that we see. And then there is a very dynamic Web3 world, which is in existence today. It has been there for past many years. Yes, users are less. Yes, like these are still early adopters. Yes, use cases are limited. There are cyber threats. All of those things are there, but this world exists today. Okay. Now, if you look at social media, there are amazing applications out there. Lens Protocol. like completely decentralized social media. There are DAOs which are running decentralized media platforms. Like all of that is still happening. So that's on Web 2 versus Web 3. Some example, and I think we touched upon different aspects here, right? And I'll touch upon some of the examples that I have seen do really well. So there is this application called Sweatcoin, like which is a walk to earn kind of an application, right? So what Sweatcoin is deployed on Near, like it has around 700,000 monthly active users. So it's a very, very popular mobile application. And in the backend, there is a crypto integration where you can have your tokens, etc. You can swap it for different tokens, etc. So all of that is there. So what is happening exactly is that you are taking your consumers or users who are like used to using some applications in a particular way, and then taking them from that Web 2 place to them on a journey to Web 3, right? Decentralized web, because decentralized web operates in a very different way. So I think we will have to take that view when it comes to brands, when it comes to use cases, that we have to understand that yes, while Web3 world exists today, majority of people are not in it, and they will not automatically get onboarded. There is a journey that we need to take them on. So I think that's where a lot of activity, a lot of fun will happen in next few years.
So it's the tech adoption journey that we are talking about, right? And any tech that we have seen, there is a journey that they go through. There's a cycle that they go through. AI, for example, has matured and it is in a hyperactive scale right now. I think it's time to come for Web3 as well.
Just to add to that
sure,
point, what I was saying is in terms of one is in terms of adoption, and the other one is in terms of the foundational layer from a facilitator aspect. You cannot do Web 3.0 without implementing interplanetary file system. Now, how many of them are an IPFS kind of a technology? There is no adoption, and you go to a large adopters, you will spend a lot of time in academic discussions trying to convince them how IPFS is more secure from an enterprise scheme of things, vis-a-vis for a startup kind of scheme of things. So it has to work in tandem in terms of the foundational layer. If Googles of the world are going to run the internet, I don't think you will ever get to Web 3.2. So that foundational intervention needs to happen from a decentralized web providers from an IPFS system perspective. On top of that, you can architect adoption, then things will start shaping up. That was my point.
Agree. Vinod, you represent Vistara and you have been with TCS before this, where you were the head of consumer packaged goods. So you've done a lot of implementations of digital technologies, including Web3. So what is your take on this?
First of all, thank you for having me in this panel again. See, I want to give a different perspective. I don't want to talk about your architectures. A lot of people, a lot of panels have talked about it. Let me give a business flavor. I think let us keep the technology aside, first of all. Let us understand what we're trying to do here. Web 3.0 is a new way of doing business. When you talk about it, you need to put the business processes in place. If tomorrow I need to get the airline on Web 3.0, what are you going to do with that? You're going to buy tickets. You're not going to do anything else, right? You want to buy the tickets, you want to make sure that you are getting upgrades. So new way of doing it. So are you going to buy as a digital asset? Are you going to work? Or in fact, already there are companies, there are already travel companies, TravelX is already doing that where you can get it as an NF token. You can actually tokenize it. And you can tokenize it and you can sell it to somebody else also. So there is basically, if you look at there's a flight up. Similarly, if you are looking at your partner network. So today you have got the complete travel agent setup. What will happen to them? If you are saying that the trust is directly with the entity you are going to work with, you are completely decentralizing that. So you need to basically look at that aspect, that how that maturity is going to come into the processes. So I think we already talked about there has to be a bridge. I think more than adoption question is about that, is the new world ready to take the masses? And it will vary from industry to industry. Some of the industries move very fast and some of the regulated industries will not move very fast, because it is not about us moving fast. We have got airports, we have got regulators, we have got government agencies, we have got GDPR, we have got customer data, we have got, and we have got ransomware, we have got security, you name it. So it's about that. So the maturity of that, I think, is important. From the use case perspective, from the, whether there's a genuine use case to move, absolutely. There's no question about it. And if you sprinkle the immersive technology on top of it, Beautiful, no? People want to go to New York through metaverse, no? And want to take the pictures behind the Statue of Liberty and post it. Those options are available. You don't have to spend 5 lakh rupees to go to US. You need just 2 hours. And nobody will know whether you are being US or you are not there. You will actually experience that. You will exactly take the boat. You will exactly go to the river. Then you will actually do that. So this is what we are talking about. Those are the potential, even if I'm talking about only about travel as one of the use case. Look at the trainings. All the trainings will be completely done through this. Why do I need to go for physical trainings? I can exactly do this. Then also I can fix my whole supply chain. Complete supply chain can be fixed. All the contracts, forget about all the contracts you have got on SAP. Those are going to gone. Or any of the systems. So these will be all smart contracts. So when you're talking about, so if I have a contract with any of my partner, it will be through the Web 3.0. Tell me that, are you having the blockchain, which provider or which currency you are going to trade? How are you, which platform you are going to go? Payment gateways have to be changed completely. So I think it is a beautiful, I would say, technology intervention, which good news is that the blockchain is not new. It is already existing. And there are a lot of surrounding technologies which are coming to the front. I think it is only this, you have to, it's the Lego brick, right? You have to put these pieces together now. And you may, out of these bricks, you can make a lot of toys. Same bricks you can use. So exactly whatever toy is ready, which can get the green color, that can push to 3.0.
So, with that New York example, you built a very good use case for deep fake detection services.
Yeah, absolutely. That comes with that.
Exactly, and that is exactly what we at Prima Vision are trying to do. We are trying to, authenticate luxury goods using blockchain. So, yeah, no, it is. For Instagram Reels, you don't need to now fly and go, right? You use the metaverse and just do it. So, see, we're making life so simple. Hurling, you had the marketing and retention for a group of brands, which some of them are, very well known, like Miss Malini, leader in the content space, and Baby Chakra, right? Organic Harvest, and many, many others. As a marketer, as a retention specialist, what is your perspective around Web 3.0? What do you think? What role do you think it will play in the industry that you are a part of?
Right. So I think when gentlemen there mentioned loyalty, like the new coin, sorry if I may use that word, I was very, very excited to hear that. That's a very upfront use case which every marketer would want to solve. And I think the panel here is very beautifully highlighted the architecture or the other needs that we have. But I think as a pure play marketer, digital marketer, for me, it's very imperative to understand where are my customers? Am I marketing to them efficiently? What are my new KPIs of success? So when we look at marketing in the Web 3, 2.5 world, we need to also understand these KPIs that, here I'm marketing to a community which is already an evangelist. They're already into, let's say, organic beauty and personal care, right? But am I marketing to them effectively? What are my KPIs of success? So I think that's something as a marketer that brands would need to figure out, right? Then going about the entire length of understanding, how do you build those communities? How do you enter those communities rather, in the 3 world? How do you enter those communities? How do you get the evangelists to talk about you? How are you going to, how do you say, increase the flywheel? Will it be referral? Will it be one community user selling the token to let another enter? How do you want, or how can you influence that circle of wheel, to benefit the brand? So I think very interesting times. My sense is, frankly, Sumit, we are still, at least in India, 3 to 5 years away from a full mature cycle. But taking inspiration from what's happening in West, like Sir said about, things that are happening in US, Dubai, right? The Indian consumer, right, is very well awakened in terms of, what are the things that they can experience, and they want to experience that in India, especially, the luxury side of things, wherein the user itself is, nuanced. I think that's where the adoption would happen first. I think that's my sense on things.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. In fact, I was doing a research, just to figure out how are the VCs reacting to this particular space? And yeah, it was very sad to notice that if you look at the first half of 2023, the VC investments in the Web3 space was just about $3.2 billion compared to $28 billion in the AI space. So there is a lot of, perception that needs to be taken care of where, the VCs feel comfortable investing. And there is a reason behind that. Whenever, I also as an investor in my previous role in the private equity company, we used to get investments from, a lot of blockchain startups, a lot of blockchain companies, and there everything was around cryptos and tokens, and people were all just looking at monetization. They were not looking at solving a problem, right? For any startup to be successful, you need to solve a problem. If you do not do that, you will not be able to scale or move beyond a certain size of space. Don't run after money. Let money run after you, right? Don't run after fame. Let fame run after you. Let that be the mantra of your startup or the business that you're building. Why not we move to the second section, which is all about use cases, right? So what are the different use cases, as industry leaders that we see in our respective organizations or the industry around us? So why not I start with Rajesh?
Yeah, sure. So the use cases, the audience has already covered it in terms of whether it is non-fungible token, whether it's a tokenization, circular economy, decentralized identities. Passwordless authentication will also become a major use case because Web3 is going to bring in what we call as the zero knowledge proofs. And once the zero knowledge proofs come into major play, you will have passwordless authentication, then hopefully the DDoS attacks should wane away, should diminish away. So there are dime a dozen in terms of use cases. Again, I will slot it in terms of pure Web 3.0 kind of use cases and then a hybrid use case when you will have the corporate interfaces or large enterprises interfaces. And currently, there's a lot of venture capital money, crowdsourced money in Web 3.0. But the institutional money is not in Web 3.0. The institutional money is in how do you bring these two worlds together and make them operate or interoperable or operate in a frictionless and a seamless manner. So those will be the use cases from my vantage point.
And Rajesh, when I was looking at your profile, I know you did some amazing work with TRI. Right. And so the three telcos that you were working with to combat the problem of spams, spam calls and spam messages that we receive. Right. You would want to highlight that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there it is more from an information sharing exercise. Today, the spam call happens because of earlier it used to happen because there was no real-time sharing of information. For instance, I would complain to Airtel, let's say I got a spam call and they would say, we are only a terminating access provider and we are not an originating access provider. So to go to Vodafone. Now, how do I go to Vodafone? I can't get to Airtel. Being an Airtel subscriber, how can I go to Vodafone not by not being an Vodafone subscriber? So that kind of information sharing has happened. So we know exactly where the spam is going to originate when it comes to registered telemarketers. So the next question would be, when you have implemented this, why do we still get so many spam calls? Those are from unregistered telemarketers, what we call as the nomad guys, who go from network to network and set up SIM farms. And those SIM farms we are able to detect now in a shorter span of time because the telcos have come to the table agreeing to share the information. So that will, over a period of time, that is also going to die down. I mean, it's a pretty complex implementation.
I think this is a great example of mass adoption, right? How can you, implement Web3 and implement it for the masses? Great. I think this is.
So the only difference is in terms of, if you go to the real Web3 evangelists in the room, they wouldn't consider it as Web3 because it is still centralized enterprise blockchain hosted by a central authority. It is a quasi de-intermediation rather than a full disintermediation.
Right. Thanks. Vinod, any use cases that you would want to highlight?
See, if I have to pick maybe 2, 3, first is the digital identity. I think the big one, if I'm able to crack that, I have to do away with a lot of things, particularly in the airline business. So you identify the person and the person can seamlessly go. And one of that small example is not exactly, but DigiYatra, you would have seen it. So the face becomes the boarding pass. It's like that. It's on the similar lines. Second is the whole experience, user experience. I said that it's going to take you to a different, altogether a different world, and definitely with an immersive technology backing it up. Third thing about the whole financial reconciliation.
Yeah.
Because we have got so many partners. I think you need, if you have got the blockchain, and that's probably the first use case which will qualify it, because a lot of companies have done that. So it may be easier for us to push that envelope on that side. And there are many more like this. And there's one more, which is the data. See, when you are talking about airlines, airport, a lot of data gets exchanged. So if you tokenize the data, pass the data without telling them what the data is about, no, it's a fantastic. It will revolutionize the whole thing. I'm getting a data, authentic data, but I don't know what the data is about. So GDPR is okay, compliance is okay, but you are actually moving very fast, and you can actually make it frictionless. The whole purpose of Web 3.0 is frictionless. Make it frictionless. Let's stop here.
Sure. Thanks. Harleen.
I think the biggest use case from a brand perspective I want to highlight, and of course, like I said, I'm a big fan of the hybrid version first, is the whole digital concept, right? So for onboarding users, right? If I see those Nike shoes, which I really love, and I know I bought the NFT, and the physical version is on its way, I think that's would be a huge step in terms of onboarding customers, and then moving, of course, eventually to owning the virtual entities, and then forward. So I think that'll be the one use case that if cracked right, or if cracked at mass level, would shun away the skepticism around Web3.
Excellent.
So I think everybody talked about some really good use cases. I'll try to give it a structure, specifically in the context of brands, right? So I feel that there are different drivers for luxury and mass market. I'll touch upon that also. But how I think about it is, and not an original idea. I read a lot of research papers around that, right? So there are three buckets in which you can kind of put all of these use cases. One is how can you innovate in your operations? Secondly, how can you improve your service delivery? And then third, how can you do product innovation using Web3? So primarily these three buckets. And if I touch upon these three buckets, right, and on operation side, you can do your supply chain orchestration, supply chain track and trace, etc. Provenance is a use case which is very prominent, especially in luxury goods, because if you buy a diamond, you want to be sure that this is not a blood diamond, or this is sources, etc. So provenance is an interesting use case on that side. Then second is your service delivery. How can you improve and engage better with your customers, right? So here, things like loyalty and rewards, that's something like Starbucks did. There is a company called Grupo Nutresa, they are doing. So, these will come there. And then some use cases like warranty cards as smart contracts, which will be a contract between the company and the customer, right? So these would be in service delivery. And on the product innovation side, as Arlene mentioned, that, these digitals, somebody dropping a digital collectible, right? And if you look at it, digital collectible as a product category is something which never existed before this. So there were things which were there existing in islands, but not in the true ownership way, right? And if you look at a complete Web3 native market segment that is coming up, like these are people who spend hours and hours on Sandbox, Roblox. They feel that these Nike shoes, which are an NFT, they feel the value of those things, right? So that's a third part. And very quickly touching upon the drivers. So I feel that for luxury, one of the driver can be how can you make something more exclusive by linking it to Web3. For mass market, similarly, a sense of belonging to a community can be a driver, right? How can I use this NFT and be part of this community? Second piece can be for luxury market, confidentiality of data or control over data can be a driver. While for mass market, incentives that you can associate with that data. For example, a BAT token that somebody talked about, Brave. So you are incentivizing user to share the information. Yeah, so I feel that these are the drivers and use cases as everybody.
Great. No, that was amazing. Over to you, Akash.
So I think most of the use cases have already been covered. So maybe I'll address it a bit differently. So the use cases actually will work fine as long as what we talked about earlier is from an adoption perspective. And to what Rajesh and Arpit said earlier, so the adoption will be faster if we can make this entire process absolutely frictionless. So like Sumit, you mentioned about AI. So why did AI suddenly or ChatGPT go from nothing to 100 million users in about a week's time? That was because onboarding was absolutely frictionless. All you had to do was log in and you're good to go. So if you are able to hit that in Web3, we are already set up for great things ahead. And if you go back and look, there are some brands, and I'm sure they've already been talked about in the last 2 days, brands who've been able to crack that in terms of Nike or in terms of Starbucks. They're not talking digital contracts. They're not talking blockchain. They're not talking consensus protocols. They're not talking about any of those things. So what really works is what the customer is looking at is the experience and what you bring to me and how easy is it for me to maybe in my head, I don't even know what Web 2 is. I don't even know what Web 3 is and I don't even care. As long as you are able to create benefit for me and you're able to give me some value out of it. So I think that is what we need to think of from a brand perspective. Consumer doesn't really care. So we don't have to move them from Web 2 to Web 3. We're already talking about Web 4. And we were just talking about it that EC just or European Commission just came out with a strategy for Web 4 on like 12th of July. So how long will this continue? 2, 3, 4, 5? 5's already been talked about with Jack Dorsey, right? So what we really need to think of is how simple we can make it. Maybe I'll just talk about one use case, and this is more from a user or a consumer perspective. We all travel, we all book hotels. Rajesh has just come in from Hyderabad. Now, what if these room nights were NFTs? And maybe somebody somewhere in this world is already working on that. Now, there are times when plans change, and you need to cancel that. How difficult it is, and you might be losing money on that. You put it on a marketplace, and there's somebody else looking for a room night. All they do is just make the transaction, and you're good to go. There is no need to call the hotel. There is no need to negotiate in terms of can you give me a discount on your charges and all of that. So those are the real life use cases which actually become possible when you have Web3 technologies running in the backend. But does a user need to know? You as a traveler, do you need to know? No, all you have is just an app where you can do all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we're running short of time. So we'll open this for questions from the audience. Just one question or two questions, Uday? Two questions? Okay, right.
We don't have any skeptics.
No skeptics. Okay, right. So I guess.
Yeah, so it's not exactly, probably it will not qualify as a question, but I think what my experience is that when we talk about Web3 and we are talking about amalgamation of different technologies coming together, we're talking about blockchain, we're talking about NFTs, we are talking about metaverse in some context. But I think what I find is, and this is my, kind of working with different partners also, we have a very siloed approach in that sense. We're talking about for example, there are startups who are more focused on metaverse. There are startups who are more focused on blockchain. So unless we have that approach where we actually define those use cases at an industry or at an organization level, which qualify as Web3, which has integration of various technologies coming together, we'll keep on talking about it, and it's a good conversation to have. But I think to just fast track that adoption cycle that we're talking about, we'll need to have that approach where we actually have a very practical approach in that sense that we get all these technologies on the table and we define the use cases. What will qualify as a typical Web3 use case. I think that is when the value accretion will happen. And that is how you will kind of shorten that adoption cycle.
Absolutely. I think Vinod touched upon it, and he actually got into details about how the airline industry can adopt it, right? And make it, encompassing all the Web3 technologies or blockchain technologies, right? Yeah, there was another question, I guess, from the gentleman there.
Hi, thanks so much for putting together this session. My name is Raj, I'm from Metafi. We actually create immersive brand experiences. We're working with Flipkart and Cadbury right now. Harley and I just had a question based on something that you mentioned, but please, it's open to the entire panel. You mentioned that, India is about 3 to 5 years away from mass adoption for Web3 and, brand versus and NFTs. Is there anything that you feel we we as founders and entrepreneurs can do to help you and the brands, bridge that gap and, advance that change faster?
I think, sorry, gentlemen here really answered that. A very upfront use case, right? I think even for now, for all the other AI-based technologies also that come, as long as we term it Web 2, Web 3, wo nahi chalega. We need to say that, we are solving this. Now, this is the solution which solves loyalty. This is a solution which solves for, how do we get more creators on board? We have a good creator co as well, right? So as long as we are solving that, I don't think the kind of technology that we're using, that would matter. So yeah, I think that'll be my take.
I think that's brilliantly put, Herlin. And I guess that's the only way towards the adoption of Web3. Keep it simple. Let not technology come in the way of adoption. Tech is always going to be there in the back end, but let it be there at the back end. Let us solve the use cases in the industry that's available using, such a beautiful technology as Web3. And I guess, we'll automatically see the adoption. The ecosystem has to be created. Any tech that you adopt, if the ecosystem is not there, ecosystem of devices, ecosystem of apps, ecosystem of the industry players coming together, the government playing a role, this will never be successful. So thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Herlin. Thank you so much, the audience, for an engaging discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. A picture, please. Thank you. And with that, we move towards our last panel discussion for the day and also for the summit.